Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Wednesday, June 26, 2024. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. Very cool show for you today. NFL draft expert Dane Brugler from The Athletic joins us once again to talk about the Buckeyes, and we got a lot to talk about. This next draft is going to be very Buckeye-y. But first, what's the best way to learn a new language? Immersion. Living where the language is spoken and using it every day. But if that's not in the cards this year, you can still learn a language the second best way, and that's with Babbel. Babbel will make you a better you. In 2024, the science-backed language learning app that actually works. You don't have to pay hundreds of dollars for private tutors or waste hours on apps that don't really help you to speak the language. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. Babbel is designed by real people for real conversations. We have a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/bucknuts, BABBEL.com/bucknuts. Rules and restrictions may apply. And we are thrilled to have him back. He should be rested and refreshed after going under for a certain period of time. Dane Brugler from The Athletic joins us. Dane, how you doing, bud?
I'm good, Dan. How are you?
Here. Doing really well. A little bit glitchy, but we'll get going. Dane had an excellent article on The Athletic, which we piggybacked on here recently. The record for players drafted in one draft from one team is 15, held by the Georgia Bulldogs from 2022. If you look at your Ohio State Buckeyes, and I don't mean Dane's, kind of maybe, we'll see, you have at least 15 guys, which he listed, that could be drafted. I got 3 more that I think could be drafted. So we set the over-under at 15. Will they break the record? Give us an idea of what you think of the class. Were you surprised all these guys came back? Do you consider this cheating now that we had 7 draft-eligible guys and the NIL era? Put everything in context for us, would you?
Yeah, it obviously goes back to last December, January, when a lot of these guys we thought would go pro. And not all of them were surprises. Jordan Hancock coming back or Jack Sawyer coming back. Those, I think, were a little bit expected. But the JT Tuimalos, the Travion Henderson, especially the position he plays, that was the most surprising, I think. So, it's just and looking at this roster, at this time last year, it was Michigan's roster where you're looking at this and say, okay, they have a chance to set a new NFL draft record. They go on, win a national title, and they had 13 draft picks last year. It came close. Ohio State, they're kind of in that spot now where the roster, the way it's set up, it's going to come down to the quarterback and how that's going to play out in the draft. They have a chance to legitimately compete for the record. So they're going to have double-digit draft picks. Now the question is, do they get close to 15? Could they surpass 15?
I think they're going to surpass 15. Here's what I found very interesting. We got a bunch of stuff we're going to talk about, and I got a lot of great questions. You listed the guys, I believe, in order. Is that correct, of how you felt they could be drafted based on what you're thinking right now? Is that fair to say?
That's
Talk
correct.
about who you had at the top of the list, because I think that would surprise some people. Tyleik Williams.
Defensive tackle. My favorite player to study off this Ohio State tape from last year. 6'2.5", 235 or 325 pounds block. He understands how to detach. He's strong. He's physical. He also plays with quickness. The thing that stood out the most about him is how smart he is. He's so aware, especially versus the run. Gap integrity is awesome. He wins at the point of attack. So he can give you the pressure that you're looking for as a pass rusher, but he shuts down the run. I mean, it is really impressive to watch. He forces that offensive line to know where he is at every time. Where is he lined up as a 3 technique? They line him up on the inside more as a nose, a shaded nose. But he's the running back. It's really impressive to watch. So I'm eager to see what kind of jump he can take. Last year was awesome. This year, I think he can put himself as a no doubt about a first round pick based off of the development he showed this year as a senior.
Okay, going off that, your top five, just in order, was Tyleik, JT Tuimoloau, Quinshon Judkins, then Trey Henderson. I'll just go through the whole group in order here, and then we'll double back. Then Denzel Burke, Emeka Egbuka, Jack Sawyer, Davison Igbenogson, Donovan Jackson, Jordan Hancock, Will Howard, Lathan Ransom, Sonny Styles, Ty Hamilton, and Cody Simon. Of that group, where is the break to you when it comes to the first round? Who are these guys that you think, if things go their way and they just have a good season, they'll be first rounders?
Honestly, I don't think that there's many out of this group that are for sure or looked at as they're going to be first rounders. I think Tyleik Williams and I think Tuamalo has a really good shot. After those two, I do think there's a little bit of a break where, the two running backs, things have to really break your way if you're going to be a running back that goes in the first round. So part of it is the position they play. Talk about Judkins and Henderson for them to get into the first round. I think there's a much better chance they're drafted on corner. Could get there. He plays a really high premium position. He's a good athlete. He's trending in the right direction based off of what he put on film last year. But I think he's probably more of a second round pick at this point. Same thing with Emeka Egbuka. I think he's a really good receiver. There's a lot to like about him, but I don't know that he has that one distinguishing trait that a team's going to look at and say, oh, we need that in the first round. I don't think he's quite on that same level as, obviously not as Marvin Harrison Jr. or Garrett Wilson or Olave, but slightly ahead of Egbuka. I think Egbuka is more in that second round territory, which is no slight at all. It's just that's kind of, he's a slot receiver. He has average size, speed is good, not amazing. Catches the ball really well. The ball skills are fantastic. Has to stay healthy first and foremost. Coming off last season where had the tightrope ankle surgery, so just want to see him get back on the field and show that he can be a playmaker. And if he does that, I think he'll cement himself as being a top 60 pick. But really, it's just those two at the top with Tyleik Williams and Tuimoloau, who I think have a good chance to be top 32 picks. The rest, I think, are better chances to be day 2 picks.
Kind of similar to Michigan in that I know they had McCarthy go high and a couple others, but they really weren't loaded with the top end guys. I hate to say this. When I look at Michigan this year, they have more guys I think that will be picked in the top 20 than they did last year. The tight end and the corner, a defensive tackle. I don't want to give them any more credit than they deserve, but they're not. When I look at Michigan's roster, it's better than I thought it would be when I looked at this time, but I digress. Okay, 3 of the guys you did not mention are offensive linemen. One is Josh Simmons, left tackle. One is center Seth McLaughlin, and one is right tackle Josh Fryer. Simmons I've actually seen on some early lists. McLaughlin is a veteran center. Fryer was an all Big Ten right tackle, who's probably a guard at the next level. But if Ohio State is to eclipse the record, those guys probably have to get drafted. Was there a reason you didn't have them on the list? You just don't think they're up to snuff? You don't think they're coming out? What's your vibe? And I only ask because I'm trying to break a record here.
Well, based off of the 2023 tape, I think Seth McLaughlin's a PFA. Now, that could change this year. If he plays up to what I think people expect of him, he has a chance to get into those later rounds. But based off of last year's tape, he is, I think, a priority free agent. And same thing with Simmons and Fryer. I think, and technically Simmons is, I think, a redshirt junior. So, he could go back. He's a guy that would have to have a really breakout year maybe to declare, or he goes back to school. Fryer, tackle, that's going to be a kind of a big thing. But yeah, it's quarterback and offensive line. That's going to be the key to this team this year. And it shows going through the draft picks, potential draft picks, and all the talent on this roster. Quarterback and offensive line, that's where the key areas are, where they have to get better consistency, they have to get improved play, and it really starts with those 2 spots.
Let's talk about quarterback. Will Howard, I think everyone pretty much expects to be the starter right now. Obviously, things could change. You got 5 guys in there who can really play, but Vegas would tell you, and the insiders here would tell you, it's probably going to be Will Howard. Will Howard almost went to the league. I heard Jim Nagy talk about him. He was one of the guys who could have gone to the Senior Bowl. I think they were waiting on maybe J.J. McCarthy or something like that. But he had him pegged as maybe a 4th rounder. I don't know if Jim was just trying to be nice on the radio, you know what I'm saying, and kind of pumping him up a little bit. But a 4th-round quarterback who's being asked to do less, I think, at Ohio State than he was at Kansas State and surrounded by better players. I think Will Howard's going to have a good year and improve under the spotlight. What were your thoughts on Will Howard coming out of last year? And do you think being at Ohio State, how will that affect him? Being around the supporting cast could help.
Yeah, well, obviously, there's no doubt he'll be around better talent, better run game, better receivers that he'll be throwing to. And so how will that affect his development? Obviously, you look at him, 6'4", 240 pounds. He's a good athlete. The way he moves around is a big plus that I think this team was missing at the quarterback position last year. And not just taking off and running. I mean, he can do that. Will Howard will break off a 40-yard run. But just the simple pocket movement is alive, throw on the move. And I think he does it at a much better rate than what we saw from the quarterback position at Ohio State last year. And that's going to be very important for this, what they ask him to do. He's tough. You love the toughness that he plays with. He will stick in the pocket and throw. He will look down that gun barrel and fire out passes. There are times where I think he's guilty of forcing throws. There's too many 50-50 balls that are on his tape that'll lead to turnovers at times. His decision making needs to be a little more consistent. But at the same time, I'm looking at these clips of tape. They lost to Texas. It was late in the game, but it might have been overtime if I remember. But that was his best tape. I mean, you saw anticipation, you saw touch. He is not afraid to throw the ball before the receiver's looking for it. I mean, he will throw in the spot where the receiver's supposed to be. And then his ability to keep plays alive. So I think that's something that will play really well in this offense when you consider the talent around him. And I think it will end up helping his draft stock. I think right now he is viewed as a mid-round pick, somewhere 4th, 5th round. That's where scouts kind of view Will Howard, top 100. You don't rule it out because of the stage he will have this year with the talent around him. It's certainly possible.
Yeah, I think people are really going to enjoy having a quarterback that's more mobile than they may think. If like you said, he has some highlights that will really surprise you running down the sideline. It kind of took me aback because he is a legitimately, and this has been confirmed when people stand next to him, he's 6'4". 6'4" is that one of those heights that a lot of people get listed at, and you're going to, this dude's 6'2", because 6'4" is almost a magic number. He is legit 6'4", maybe 6'5". So we are optimistic about that. One of the great questions we got from our gallery here is, do you think there's a guy on this list that will be a better pro than a college player? I have my thoughts, but I'll defer to the guru at first here.
I think a guy like Jack Sawyer, who isn't maybe the most deceptive pass rusher in terms of how he wins. But I think we're going to look at it, and Jack Sawyer is still going to be a starter in the NFL. So he might never make a Pro Bowl, but he's just going to be a solid starter for a long, long time. He's going to make some defenses very happy. I'm very eager to see Donovan Jackson this year. Talent's not the question with him. You can see why he was a 5-star. The movement skills that he plays with, can he be more consistent? He needs to be a better finisher, needs to have better anticipation with understanding what the defense is trying to do to him. So I think Donovan Jackson could be in that conversation. Jordan Hancock, who was mostly in the nickel last year, probably more the same this year. Can he push it and continue to get better and better? Because we have not seen the best of Jordan Hancock yet. So I think he is a good answer for that question as well.
Yeah, Jack Sawyer be interesting. Jack really turned it on the last few games. Now, was that a guy just making a run at the end of the season based on matchups, etc., or will he be able to statistically kind of keep that up? I remember you discussing the Bears trade when they traded for the dude from Washington, and he was slotted to where Sawyer was going to go, and so they did it, and it was a Montez Sweat, I think it was.
Right.
And it's a good move for that reason. And I think Ohio State guys have had success. Brett Price just says Jack Sawyer is Sam Hubbard. I don't know about that. He's a little bit, I think Jack has a little bit more get up to him, but we'll see. Like I said, if he can pick up where he left off, that'd be great. And Hancock was a great one. Hancock's one of those guys to me, just has a nose for the ball. The ball finds him. It's like the guys who can offensive rebound, the ball finds him. Hancock finds the ball, man. I don't know how.
Yeah. He's
just got those instincts. It's not luck. I'll tell you my vote for this. And this is the guy, I'm still on the Sonny Styles bandwagon. If he can get it figured out, his versatility and his, we have the NBA draft tonight, ironically, which is really a more of a traits-based thing than even the NFL is. The NFL, you really got to produce. Sonny Styles, to me, is that uber-talented basketball player that maybe hasn't found his position yet. And if he could possibly kind of get in the right groove, he's got a lot to him. Even if you look at the plays he made last year, when he hits guys, it's just different. They go down much quicker. I mean, he's a blessed player. He just really hasn't found his groove. And look, expectations were outlandish for him, so it's taken him a little bit of a while. All right. Okay, this is a good question. In your opinion, what position group do you believe to be the strongest heading into 2025 in all of college football, not just Ohio State? Is there a unit you've seen that just has taken you aback or is loaded or has some kind of aspect that we all need to be paying attention to?
Probably running back. And that works for both Ohio State and just nationally, obviously with Travion Henderson being the top senior running back prospect this year, 10 in terms of the top 3 senior running backs this year. Travion Henderson, and then I like the Rutgers kid, number 2, and then Donovan Edwards, who's taken over as the true starter at Michigan this year. I think those are your top 3 senior running backs going into the season. And then, Jaquavius Marks from USC, I guess technically a Big Ten back now. He's somewhere in that top 5 to 6. But really, it's the underclassmen that are going to make this running back class really, really intriguing. And we're coming off a year where running back, we weren't for sure going to have a top 50 running back this past, but it wasn't a lock. This year, we will have multiple top 50 running backs. Talked about Quinshon Judkins, obviously coming over from Ole Miss. That'll be interesting to see how that timeshare works out with the Buckeyes. But Ashton Jeanty from Boise State, Ollie Gordon, Oklahoma State, Omarion Hampton, North Carolina, Damian Martinez transferred from Oregon State, now at Miami. So the running back position, I think, is loaded this year. We're going to see a lot of these guys show out and then go to the draft, and it's good. We're going to look at running back as one of the stronger positions in this year's NFL draft.
What do you make of Quinshon Judkins coming to play with Travion Henderson? Do you think it's going to help or hurt?
It's really, obviously production matters, but to your point, like you mentioned earlier, traits matter more. And so I think it'll be interesting looking at the timeshare, how they figure that out. There's I don't want to say a good chance, but a realistic chance that one of them, at least one, if not both, will get banged up. And, it's where you really appreciate having more than one running back. So I think that, scouts aren't dumb. They know they're split against one or both, that they don't both put up 1,500 yards rushing this year. That's not gonna be a thing. NFL scouts understand the situation, so I think absolutely it could end up helping him, especially going against some of these Big Ten defenses that have respect. But a guy like Quinshon Judkins can make it happen, and I mean he's. Watching him on the Ole Miss tape, there were so many times where I'm like, okay, well, that would be a negative play for most running backs. That would be a tackle for loss. And he's ending up getting 5, 6, 7 yards. And it's just a combination of quick feet, toughness. His balance is outstanding. So I think he has everything you want. I want to see him get better on passing downs, just in terms of out of the backfield, just be more consistent as a blocker, things like that. But I think he has all the tools to do it. And then with Travion, staying healthy, obviously, number one thing that you want to see out of him. But he can be that home run hitter. He's got the speed. He can give you a little bit of a shake, but he also has that toughness where he can go over you. So it's going to be, if you're a defense going against this Ohio State offense, when you have those two running backs plus a 6'4", 240-pound quarterback who can also run, and then you got to cover stressing a defense, that is going to make it awfully tough.
Yeah. We talked about earlier this week about how you don't just go to the NFL and run away from people. Travion Henderson is one of those guys that I think has actual NFL big play potential. He's like got Olympic speed. To me, and I said this, Dane knows that I discovered Dane, and I discovered him. My personal discovery of Dane was when he was with the Cowboys. I wanted Quinshon Judkins for the Cowboys. I thought he was the best every down back in terms of just kind of grinding it out. And I talked about how I'm a huge fan of 2nd and 2, and that is Quinshon Judkins in a nutshell to me. Mm-hmm. So last question that I will give you, it comes from Man on the Moon. Generally, what would you say are the top 3 characteristics that NFL GMs look for in a prospect?
Oh, wow. I mean, it really depends by position. I mean, I know for me personally, like I have a checklist of what I want at each position. And so, quarterback, it's processing, it's accuracy, and then and so like each position, you have a set of criteria that you're looking for. And I think in general terms, when you're looking at athletes, you want to see how they perform in space. That was one of the first things that I think it was Alonzo Highsmith, who has been a mentor for me over the years. I think I got that from him, where you want to see how a guy moves in space. I don't know if it's an offensive lineman, if it's a running back, it's a corner, it doesn't matter. How do they move in space in terms of change of direction, speed, burst, plant and go? That's where the combine comes in. Your dash, this guy's a tenth of a second better. Okay, no, they want to see these guys on the field, move in space, do all these different drills, just to see the movements, and that's what teams care about. Certain positions you need to be smarter than others. You can get away with maybe your defensive tackle not being as smart as your linebacker or your corner. So intelligence changes from position by position. It really is position by position, and then obviously football character. You have to buy in that these guys are fully committed. Not every NFL player loves football. It's their favorite thing in the world. It's not their passion necessarily, but are you going to give everything that you have down in, down out? Do you have the toughness to grind out some of those tough games, especially November, December? So buying into the intangibles that a player offers, that's a big part of this as well. And that might be the toughest to figure out of all these criteria, because there's not really a metric that shows that. It's just trying to talk to enough people, coaches, players, and figure out, okay, who's the heartbeat of your team, who's in the meeting room, who's the guy leading, and having that leadership qualities, that's a big part of it. So yeah, we could talk for hours really and go position by position and kind of figure out what exactly GMs are looking for. But I think that's just kind of a very general brief overview of scouts and kind of what they're looking for at the NFL level.
Alonzo Highsmith, I believe, University of Miami, a lot of time with the Oilers, cup of coffee with the Cowboys. Number 32, big, tough guy.
Oh, he's a big guy. Yeah. Big and tough.
Running back, was like 230, 240?
Describe him, yeah.
Big boy. All right, I lied. Last question. Your thoughts on Michigan's draft class coming up, and your thoughts on how Michigan matches up with the Buckeyes. And I remind you, you are from Ohio.
Hey, I have to attack my job with clear glasses. So no scarlet glasses here. And I really liked their draft class a year ago. I was a big JJ McCarthy fan. At this time last year, I was calling JJ McCarthy a top 20 pick.
Yep.
And, that's how it came to fruition. This year, there's definitely some players. I mean, Will Johnson at corner looks like the real deal. He has a good chance to be a top 10 pick. Big fan of him. I think you look at defensive tackle and you look at Mason Graham. Watching that Michigan team last year, Mason Graham, number 55, stood out more than almost everyone they had drafted this past year. So Mason Graham is a dude. And then their other defensive tackle, Kenneth Grant, the big boy. He can move as well. He's not quite the player that Grant is, but he is a big boy who's could have a kind of a breakthrough year this year. And then Colston Loveland, the tight end, he's the top tight end this year. Any guys that inevitably there will be some players that emerge that maybe we don't know about yet. We know them on paper, but we know their recruiting rating, but we don't know just exactly what they're going to look like on the field. So I would throw in the safety, Rod Moore. He's got a chance to be one of the first safeties drafted. It's a really rich group of Big Ten safeties this year because, especially we talk about Lathan Ransom coming back. He'll be one of the top 5 senior safeties this year. Dante Trader from Maryland. Wisconsin's got a kid, Wohler. Castro at Iowa. So it's going to be a really rich group of senior. Ohio State each have one of those guys. Offensive line, they replace so many guys, but Miles Hinton comes back. So, if this Michigan roster they still have some players left over. We mentioned Donovan Edwards before as well. They still have some players left over, but they have to replace a lot. And those replacements, do we see any of those guys maybe emerge as, hey, this is an NFL guy? I'm sure there might be one or two. So it'll be interesting to watch and kind of see with, new head coach, maybe, a lot of new faces there, what that Michigan team looks like this year.
Well, we can only hope, Dane, that things get back to normal around here and good triumphs over evil. That will be aggregated, and we'll cut your picture out for that. So we appreciate Dane stopping by. We will try and have him back every now and then because having another person on here is just kind of a waste of time when Dane is the standard for this. And this is going to be a big year for Ohio State, and then you can talk after that. We've got some tremendous underclassmen coming up. You talk about safety. The best safety not in the NFL plays for Ohio State right now. And we have some receivers coming, Dane, that is going to thrill the mind and alarm the senses. So we appreciate Dane stopping by. Thank you, man. Appreciate it always. All right, before we go, I've got to let you know, I didn't want to read this ad in front of Dane because it would have been embarrassing. But ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce it remains Smooth Sack Summer. When you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're groomed from top to bottom. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped, you can make this season your smoothest yet. The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep your boys downstairs cool while looking hot. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Get 20% off and free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use code BUCKNUTS. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code BUCKNUTS at manscaped.com. MANSK, wrong again, MANSCAPED.com. It's Smooth Sack Summer, boys. Get on board or get left behind. We appreciate Dane stopping by. We'll be back with the Dean and the Grand Poobah tomorrow. Have a good one, Bucknutters.